Hello all. So, before we get the ball rolling on this one, I just wanted to let you all know that we're maybe a month out from Baby Owl's due date, meaning that she could, but hopefully won't, arrive tomorrow. No kiddo, that was not a challenge. I am going to be working right up until B-Day, but if I suddenly vanish, that's what's happened. The plan right now is for me to spend the first few weeks of our new life as parents just scripting and recording as much as possible, as Mrs. Owl and the babykins will likely just be resting together. If you want to get in touch with me during this time, our Discord would be your best bet. Links, as always, are in the description, and the community we've got over there is actually kind of amazing. So there will be a short drought, followed by a slightly accelerated schedule as I assemble videos from these aforementioned recordings. Oh, and if you hear a baby crying in the background, that's why. Now that I think about it, it might actually add a bit to these scary bits. And as always, I just wanted to say a huge thanks again to those who've joined as patrons, left super thanks, or even gave advice to help us with the incoming owlet. It's just so massively appreciated. You are wonderful folks, and without you, there is no way I'd still be doing this. Anyway, enough schmaltz. On with the show. Hello all, this is the Owl, and since you've been asking me to do more Ito, and as I do always try to honor patron requests, today we are going to look at one of my favorite stories from the man. And let's just say, it's probably a good thing that I hate seafood. And after this one, maybe you will too. Now, I've said my piece on Ito before, but cliff notes, he is a genuinely fascinating individual, an imagination as big as the universe, some real artistic chops, and an almost Stephen King level of ability to come up with a weird-ass idea for a story, and then go so bug-nuts insane by the end of it that you can't help but have a good time. And oh boy, does that bring me to today's topic. The inspirations of Gyo are actually pretty damn great. Ito's a fan of Spielberg's Jaws, which, yeah, so am I. It's one of the best horror movies ever made. But Ito wanted to one-up Spielberg, and so he came up with the idea of the Jaws shark suddenly being able to chase folks up onto the land, which sounds out there, but, well, have you ever seen Jaws 4? And so, yeah, it's big, epic, howlingly crazy, and I kind of love this one, although maybe not quite in the way that Ito intended, as this, to me, represents Ito at his most silly. And while it's way, way too ridiculous to be scary, it's just, oh man, this one is fun. Stephen King got maximum overdrive, and Ito gets Gyo. It's not his most famous story by a long shot, but it has certainly made an impact. Hell, it even got a nod in Chainsaw Man, which is generally a sign that you made it. What I love about this story is that, unlike a lot of Ito tales, it's not trying to be classy, it's not an impenetrable social allegory, it's not cosmic horror or a high-concept mystery. This is pure B-movie, a patently ridiculous concept that he just goes buck wild with. Oh, and one more thing. You might notice that I lean a bit harder into the analysis than normal, and that's because Gyo is published by our old copyright strike happy friends at Showpro. Now, if the Twitters are to be believed, they have unclenched their buttholes a bit recently, but better safe than sorry. So, what's the fuss all about? Well, let's take a look and dive on in, or possibly climb on out, and then run around on little silly spider legs. I'm getting ahead of myself, and yes, you are in for a treat. Our story opens with a sequence very reminiscent of what a lot of folks consider the scariest sequence of Jaws. You know, what's-his-face dives down into a sunken boat, and we get the biggest jump scare of the movie with that eyeless corpse. Yeah, that traumatized me as a kid. Anyway, our protagonist is exploring an ancient sunken battleship off the coast of Okinawa when something zooms past him like a torpedo, alerting a bunch of sharks. Oh dears. We learn that his name is Tadashi, and he narrowly escapes the sharks with the help of his bird, Kaori. That's one of the most ridiculously on-the-nose character names I've ever seen in a manga that's not called My Hero Academia. It is a common girl's name in Japan, but it means pleasant scent or fragrance. Keep that in mind as we go. Oh, and if I'm not mistaken, Tadashi means loyal or dutiful, which Japanese names are fun. Kaori does not enjoy it out here. She hates the sea, as she's got an extremely sensitive sense of smell, try and say that 5 times fast, and cannot tolerate the odor of fish. A theme hammered home further when they get back home. Tadashi comes in for a snog and she refuses until he brushes his teeth. As a pretty fastidious person with an extraordinarily sensitive nose myself, I do sort of sympathize, but Kaori is one of the things that I don't think works in this story, because she's set up to be honestly just kind of obnoxious and unlikable. Tadashi understandably gets a bit annoyed at her, as he's, well, a bit of a smelly bastard, and it's something that's evidently a common issue between them. Sure enough, once she demands that, in the future, he needs to brush his teeth and de-stankify his breath anytime he wants to kiss her, this escalates into a full-on Donnybrook, with her snapping at him, pitching a massive sulk and saying she's going back to Tokyo. After he molds for a few minutes, he goes out after her. It's this kind of relationship. Man, people are people wherever you are, I guess. But I will say that, while I don't love these characters, the art here is pretty damn great, even by Junji Ito standards. It's all hand-drawn, There's lots of wonderful background detail and fantastic expressions. I'd almost go out on a limb and say that this might have the best art of any of his longer form stories. He also helpfully moves a lot of speech bubbles out of panel to give more room for us to appreciate the detail, which is a nice trick that I wish more mangakas used. Anyways, Tadashi eventually finds Kaori, except that she's no longer cross. Instead, she's frozen in terror, seeing what she thinks is a snake in the grass. But before they can get a good look at it, it vanishes. Worse though, whatever it was absolutely reeks. And with Kaori now freaking out, Tadashi takes her back to their, I think it's a house on the coast, right? Regardless, this sort of ends our opening scene. And brace yourselves, because we're about to dive right on into the crazy. Back in their little holiday home, Kaori's had another shower. I think the implication is that she's not just overly sensitive to smells, she's a complete germaphobe. Oh, Ducky, that's gonna be unfortunate. However, she can still smell the stink of whatever the thing outside was. Initially, she thinks the smell is clinging to them somehow, but Tadashi notices that the entire place is starting to develop a certain fishy hum. He doesn't mind it especially, but Kaori is now freaking out completely, and to get away from her complaining, he decides to take a night walk himself. Only when he goes outside, he realizes that it doesn't smell. Uh-oh, yeah, this is a very well constructed horror sequence, but this is also one of the two big problems with this story, and why I don't find it especially scary. See, smell is not a sense that is usually written about much, and when it is, it has to be done with analogy. You know, smells like. We don't have that many words to even describe smells, which is why that one Calvin and Hobbes strip works so well. Having one of the elements of a threat being that it stinks worse than the north end of a southbound Gary Busey is kind of hard to capture in art form. I'm not sure if I can explain it any better than this. And to make it even sillier, Ito, for some reason, thought that it would be a great idea to not only draw the smell, but give it a sound effect. And that's just too funny to be scary. You might as well draw stink lines and the word poo, like in the damn Beano. He says, realizing that nobody that watches YouTube will get that reference. Anyways, Kaori's in the shower again, and really starting to come unstuck, as somehow the stink is getting stronger. Gagging, she goes to investigate and sees... nope, no idea. But it almost literally scares the tits off her. Yeah, weirdly, this manga, especially for an Ito, has rather a lot of butts and boobas. Thanks, as it means that now I need to take the time to censor them. And yeah, you get a pretty good look at Kaori's bum. There's a reason to go and buy the manga. Tadashi comes home armed with a military strength air freshener and is almost overwhelmed by the reek of whatever is happening in the house. He soon finds an unconscious Kaori, but before he can revive her, he hears a sequence of strange tip-tapping footsteps. Something small and fast is moving around the house at high speed, dragging that mind-altering pong with it. His first instinct is that it's a cat, which, yeah, I've encountered some cats like that. And speaking of references that nobody will get now, however, he sees it dart behind a chest of drawers, which he slams into, crushing it. Dude, what if that was actually a cat? You'd feel, oh right, there's a joke here about smashing no, I can't say that on YouTube anymore, can I? Crushing kitty? Nah, I'm too highbrow for vagina jokes today in this manga basically about farts. So, Tadashi, did you actually succeed in, mashing Moggy? Well, he pulls the chest of drawers away, and we finally get a look at what we're facing here. What the hell? It's a fish, but fused with some sort of Geiger-esque contraption, giving it legs and, by the looks of it, the capacity to breathe on land. Yeah, I won't lie, that is freaky as hell. Tadashi bags up the horrible stinking thing, but it appears to somehow still be alive, suddenly poking holes in the bag with those wickedly sharp little spider legs, so he pounds it with a damn rock, I assume killing it. A now awake Kaori tells him that she can still smell the thing, but he tells her that it's basically been reduced to a fish pancake and sealed up in a bag. She asks him to check, and annoyed, he goes to make sure. And yeah, the farty fish thing is gone. He then hears a terrible scream, dashes back upstairs, and okay, we briefly move from scary Ito to silly Ito, as apparently the reek from the fish has filled the bag and now it's drifting around like a helium balloon. What? What are we doing here? Kaori flees, but this causes the bag to get drawn along behind her, I'm guessing in her slipstream, and I'm still laughing way too much to find this at all scary. But yeah, the fart balloon finally floats out to sea, and I'm just imagining some poor fishing boat out there going, "Damn, Jim, haven't seen a fish all evening." "Yeah, Mike, and it was bloody raining the things earlier this morning. What I wouldn't give for that right now." I wish I could draw comic strips. Again, yeah, there is often a fine line between comedy and horror, but this is a story that honestly works better as a kind of surreal comedy. Tadashi goes after it, as he's never seen anything quite like this, and heads to the tide line. That sha sound is just the ocean, by the way. Japanese onomatopoeia are kind of their own thing, but in the lapping waves, he suddenly starts seeing familiar shapes. Oh bugger. We cut forward to the next day, and Tadashi has done the intelligent thing. He's called the cops, who, unsurprisingly, do not believe a word of this. However, I'm not sure if Ito intended to make this character so deliberately unlikable, but Kaori refuses to back him up, because she's literally just sulking as he took her out for some fresh air, and she's still feeling sick. Lady, this is not the time to pout. The scene shifts, and yeah, this is your standard end of Act 1 sequence, where we briefly adopt a more diffuse perspective to show how the disaster is beginning to spread. Some fishermen pull up something horrifying onto their boat. And worse yet, their dragnet is now full of the mutant Geiger fish. That's actually almost scary. And is that a Geiger squid I see? Awesome. Our next little vignette is probably the most Jaws moment in this manga. Although, holy crap, this beach looks like exactly where I lived while I was in Japan. A lifeguard spots a distinctive fin circling some bloody banging bathing bikini beach bunnies about to get their bums bitten. He calls out and they do the whole scream and rush back onto the sand thing. And yeah, I have a feeling that this is the image Ito had in mind when he planned Gyo out, as the shark does not stop. Okay, that's actually terrifying. It charges right up out of the ocean and onto land in pursuit. Nicely done, Mr. Ito. See, you can be scary when you dial back the crazy slightly. Back over to Tadashi. He's, a bit of a sap, as he apologizes to Kaori, despite her being, kind of awful to him. And it's a pretty sweet moment. She's been sick, but does seem to be getting better. However, as he is about to lean in for a snog, she shrieks and says that the smell is back, once again coming from outside. Annoyed, he takes a peek and finally this actually feels like horror again, as we get probably the most effective sequence in the manga. I'm not kidding. Had I seen this when I was younger, this would have given me nightmares. It's just a terrifying concept. It appears that the massive walking jaws, legs? No, I got nothing. Is walking past their house, but one of its spidery biomechanical pseudolimbs gets caught up on the house's supports and it can't get past. They retreat to and hide in the bedroom while the thing goes bananas outside, banging and thudding around, and then everything goes quiet. Kaori sends Tadashi off to investigate. He peers around the corner. Oh crikey Moses, that legitimately scared me. And we get a protracted and pretty damn harrowing sequence where the shark chases them all around the house, wrecking the place up, while hordes, shoals, schools, I don't know, of reeking sea life swarm through the town. Eventually, Legs, I'm calling him that, plunges out of an upstairs window. They look down in horror as the thing keeps trying to move, and we get a good look at the bizarre system of pipes and hydraulics that made this nightmare possible. What the hell is going on? As Act 1 draws to a close, we see from a news report that the phenomenon is spreading throughout the island chain, and I'm guessing into mainland Japan. It appears that the fishpocalypse has begun. And we'll end it there today, as we're about to enter the point of the story where it goes straight up bananas. And even then, it'll take us a while to hit peak Ito. You'll see what I mean, but you'll have to wait until next time. Before we finish for the day, I want to give a huge thanks, as always, to my fantastic supporters on Patreon: Astrixik Gaming, Cheerful Satanist, Starwin Marwin, High Lord J, Jacob Ramsey, Crazy, James Makes Jam, Wargle, Kel Core, Lance Goebel, Paul Norberger, Piece of Yeast, Rafferty, Aaron Arnold, and XTC Pill. If you want to hear me say your name and, you know, help Mrs. Owl and I out or buy Baby Owl a present and ensure that I can keep on doing what I do, why not take a look at our Patreon? You'll also get some fun perks on the Discord, early access to most of my videos, and, if it's your thing, an invite to our upcoming Dungeons & Dragons campaign. If you want to see more like this, why not stick around? Subscribe, bell, you know what to do. All links, as always, are in the description. Take care, my friends, and cheers. This is the Owl, signing off.